The Netflix logo glowed in the darkness of Trevor's bedroom. 3:47 a.m. He'd started watching at 9 p.m., just one episode, to wind down after work. That was 7 hours ago. His eyes burned. His back ached from being hunched over his laptop. He had to be up for work in 3 hours. But the next episode button appeared, counting down from 15 seconds. Just one more, just to see what happens. He clicked, episode after episode, season after season. Time dissolved. Reality faded. The story on screen became more real than his own life. When his alarm finally went off at 7 a.m., Trevor felt like he'd been hit by a truck. He dragged himself through the morning routine, pounding energy drinks, mentally preparing excuses for why he'd be late again. This was the third time this week. Trevor couldn't remember when entertainment stopped being occasional enjoyment and became his entire life. Maybe it was after the breakup with Amanda. She'd called him emotionally unavailable, said he cared more about his video games than their relationship. He'd been offended at the time. Now, 2 years later, he could see she'd been right. But instead of changing, he just leaned in harder. Why face the pain of loneliness when he could lose himself in fictional worlds? Why deal with his career dissatisfaction when he could watch other people live exciting lives on screen? Why work on himself when he could level up a character in a game instead? Entertainment was easier, safer, more satisfying, or so he told himself. His apartment told a different story. Empty takeout containers stacked on the coffee table, dishes piled in the sink, laundry overflowing the hamper, bills unopened on the counter. The only clean, organized space was his gaming setup and his streaming queue. Trevor worked from home, a job he'd taken specifically so he could have more freedom. Freedom that he immediately used to binge watch shows during work hours, muting his camera during Zoom meetings, pretending to be engaged while actually watching a show on his second monitor. He was good enough at his job to get by, but getting by was all he did. No promotions, no advancement, no meaningful connections with coworkers. He was invisible, and he preferred it that way, because being invisible meant no one expected anything from him. His mother called on Sunday mornings. "Trevor, honey, are you coming to church today?" "Can't, Mom. Got a project deadline." Lie. "That's what you said last week?" "It's busy season." Also, a lie. "When's the last time you came? Your father and I miss seeing you." Guilt twisted in Trevor's stomach. "I know, Mom. Soon. I promise." But soon never came, because Sunday mornings meant sleeping off late-night gaming sessions, meant recovering from binge-watching marathons, meant staying in his safe, isolated bubble where no one could ask uncomfortable questions about his life. After hanging up, Trevor would feel guilty for about 10 minutes. Then he'd open YouTube, scroll through gaming videos, and the guilt would fade into background noise. It started with a work email. "Trevor, we need to discuss your performance. Please schedule a meeting with HR this week. Michael." Trevor's stomach dropped. He knew he'd been slipping, missing deadlines, half-hearted work, but he hadn't thought anyone noticed. Apparently they had. The meeting was worse than he'd imagined. His manager, Michael, sat across from him with HR present. "Trevor, your work quality has declined significantly over the past year. You're consistently late to meetings, your deliverables are rushed, and frankly, you seem disengaged. I've been dealing with some personal stuff. We understand life happens," the HR rep interjected gently, "but we need to see improvement. This is a formal warning. If things don't change in the next 60 days, we'll have to let you go." Trevor nodded, throat tight. "I understand. I'll do better." He left the office in a daze. Getting fired would mean what? Finding a new job? Interviewing? Pretending to be a functional adult? The thought was exhausting. He went home, told himself he'd work on his resume and action plan. Instead, he opened his PlayStation and played for 6 hours straight. His best friend Chris showed up unannounced on a Saturday afternoon. Trevor answered the door in pajamas, 3-day stubble, hair unwashed. Chris took one look at him and the disaster behind him and sighed. Dude. What? Can I come in? Trevor reluctantly stepped aside. Chris surveyed the apartment, the screens, the mess, the closed curtains blocking all sunlight. When's the last time you left this place? I left yesterday, went to get food. Before that? Trevor couldn't remember. I work from home. I don't need to leave much. Trevor, this isn't healthy. I'm fine. You're not fine. Look at yourself. Look at this place. You're disappearing into screens, man. Trevor bristled. I like gaming. I like movies. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with it. But this? Chris gestured around. This is addiction. This is escape. You're not living life. You're watching other people live it. That's dramatic. Is it? When's the last time you went to church, hung out with friends in person, had a real conversation that wasn't online, done anything that mattered? The questions hit like punches. I'm busy. With what? Busy leveling up in games? Busy binge watching shows? Trevor, none of that is real. None of it matters. You're wasting your life. Anger flared. Get out. What? Get out. I don't need this. I don't need you judging me. Chris stared at him for a long moment, sadness in his eyes. I'm not judging you. I'm worried about you. But if you can't see that, then yeah, I'll go. He left. Trevor slammed the door and stood there, chest heaving with rage. But underneath the anger was something else. Fear. Because Chris was right. That night, Trevor couldn't sleep. Chris's words echoed. You're not living life. You're watching other people live it. Trevor looked around his dark apartment, lit only by the glow of his TV on standby mode. When had this happened? When had he stopped participating in his own life? He thought about his childhood dreams. He'd wanted to be an architect, to create things, to build something meaningful. Now he pushed papers for a company he didn't care about and spent all his free time consuming other people's creativity instead of creating anything himself. He thought about his relationship with God. He'd grown up in church, had been baptized at 13, had felt close to God once. But when was the last time he'd prayed? Really prayed? Not just a mumbled, thanks for the food? When was the last time he'd opened his Bible? When was the last time he'd even thought about God outside of Sunday guilt? The answer was painful. He couldn't remember. Entertainment had filled every space in his life where God used to be. His first thought in the morning wasn't prayer. It was checking his gaming notifications. His last thought at night wasn't gratitude. It was which show to watch next. His free time wasn't spent in worship or service. It was spent in fictional worlds where he didn't have to face his real one. Trevor sat on the edge of his bed, head in his hands. What am I doing? What have I become? Sunday morning came. Trevor's alarm went off, the one he'd set 6 months ago for church and had been snoozing ever since. He reached to turn it off, same as always, but something stopped him. Chris's words. When's the last time you went to church? His mother's voice. Your father and I miss seeing you. His manager's warning. If things don't change in the next 60 days, Trevor sat up, looked around his apartment, looked at the life he'd built or failed to build, and he made a choice. He got up, showered, dressed, and drove to church for the first time in 8 months. The sanctuary looked the same, sounded the same, smelled the same. But Trevor felt different, exposed, like everyone could see how far he'd fallen. His parents spotted him and nearly cried with joy. Trevor, oh honey, we're so glad you're here. The guilt was crushing. He sat in the back, hoping to be invisible. The worship started. Familiar songs he used to sing without thinking. Now the lyrics hit different. You're the air I breathe. You're the song I sing. Was he, or had Trevor's breath become binge watching? His song become theme songs from shows? Pastor David's sermon was titled, "What Are You Really Worshipping?" Trevor almost laughed at the irony, or cried. He wasn't sure which. "We think idolatry is ancient," Pastor David said. "Golden calves and stone statues, but modern idols are subtler. They're not things we bow to physically. They're things we give our time, attention, and devotion to instead of God." Trevor shifted uncomfortably. Ask yourself, what do I think about first in the morning? What do I run to when I'm stressed? What consumes most of my time and energy? Whatever your answer is, that's what you're really worshiping. The words pierced Trevor's chest. Entertainment isn't evil, Pastor David continued. Rest isn't sin. But when entertainment becomes escape, when it consumes your life, when it replaces relationship with God and others, it's become an idol. Trevor felt tears building. Some of you are hiding in screens, video games, movies, social media, YouTube, doesn't matter which. You're disappearing into fictional worlds because your real world feels too hard, too painful, too demanding. How does he know? How does he know exactly what I'm doing? But here's the truth. You can't level up in real life by avoiding it. You can't find purpose by watching other people live theirs. And you can't find God by filling every quiet moment with noise. Pastor David's voice softened. God wants to meet you in the silence, in the stillness, in the moments you're so desperate to fill with entertainment. He's saying, let's just come to me, rest in me, find your satisfaction in me, not in temporary distractions that leave you emptier than before. The altar call came. Trevor's feet moved before his brain could talk him out of it. He walked forward, tears streaming, and fell to his knees at the altar. God, he choked out, I've been so lost. I've wasted so much time. I've replaced you with everything else. I don't even know who I am anymore. A hand touched his shoulder. Pastor David knelt beside him. Son, God's not angry with you. He's been waiting for this moment, waiting for you to come home. Trevor wept harder. I don't know how to change. I don't know how to stop. Not alone, but with God and with community, you can. One day at a time. Change was harder than Trevor expected. The first week, he deleted his gaming apps, canceled his streaming subscriptions, removed the temptations. Then he sat in his apartment with nothing to do. The silence was deafening, uncomfortable, almost unbearable. Every instinct screamed to reinstall the apps, to escape back into the comfortable numbness. Instead, Trevor called Chris. Hey man, I'm sorry. You were right. And I need help. Chris's voice was cautious but hopeful. What do you need? Accountability. Someone to check on me, to keep me from disappearing again. I can do that. They met for coffee that week, then again the next week, then started a weekly dinner tradition. Real friendship, real conversation, real life. It was awkward at first. Trevor had forgotten how to interact without a screen between them. But slowly, it got easier. Trevor joined a men's small group at church. 8 guys, all fighting their own battles, some with addiction, some with anger, some with lust. Trevor shared his story. I'm here because I've been living in a fantasy world for 2 years. I've neglected my life, my relationships, my faith, and I don't know how to be present anymore. No judgment, just nods of understanding. What helps me, one man shared, is replacing bad habits with good ones. Every time I want to do the old thing, I do something else instead, something life-giving. Trevor tried it. When he wanted to binge watch, he went for a walk instead. When he wanted to game, he read his Bible or a book instead. When he wanted to scroll YouTube, he called a friend instead. It was excruciating. His brain fought him every step, craving the dopamine hits of entertainment. But slowly, so slowly, it got easier. Trevor's apartment looked different. The screens were still there, but they weren't the center of everything anymore. There were books on the coffee table, a guitar in the corner, something he'd played in high school and abandoned, dishes washed, windows open, light streaming in. His work performance improved dramatically. His manager noticed. "Trevor, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. This is the employee we hired." Trevor smiled. "Just trying to actually show up for my life." His mother called on Sunday morning. "Are you coming to church today?" "Already on my way, Mom." Silence. Then, "Really?" "Really. I'll see you there." He could hear the smile in her voice. "I'm so proud of you, honey." 6 months later, Trevor stood before the men's group, ready to share his testimony. 6 months ago, I was drowning. I'd replaced God, relationships, purpose, everything, with screens. I was alive, but not living. Present, but not participating. The men listened intently. I thought entertainment was just harmless fun, just a way to relax. But it became my escape, my drug, my God. And it almost cost me everything. My job, my relationships, my faith, my life. He paused. What saved me wasn't willpower. It was surrender. It was finally admitting I had a problem. It was letting people in. It was replacing the idol with the real thing, with God, with community, with purpose. A young guy in the back raised his hand. How do you deal with the cravings? I keep trying to stop gaming, but I always go back. Trevor nodded. Honestly, some days I still want to. I still feel the pull, but I've learned something. You can't just remove the bad thing. You have to replace it with something better. You have to fill the void. With what? With whatever God's calling you to. For me, it's been serving at church, learning guitar again, actually investing in friendships, creating instead of just consuming. It's not perfect, but it's real, and real beats virtual every single time. 1 year later, Trevor sat in a coffee shop, laptop open, working on a personal project. He was designing a tiny house, an old dream he'd abandoned years ago. Architecture software open, sketches scattered around, fully engaged. A notification popped up on his phone. New game release. His old friends were playing. He looked at it for a moment, felt the familiar tug. Then he swiped it away and returned to his design, not because he had superhuman willpower, but because he'd finally found something more satisfying than escape. Purpose, presence, life. His phone rang. Chris. "Hey man, group of us are grabbing dinner tonight. You in?" A year ago, Trevor would have said no, would have stayed home with his screens. Now? "Yeah, absolutely. Where and when?" "Luigi's at 7. I'll be there." Trevor closed his laptop, packed up, and headed out into the warm evening sun. On the drive, he prayed. Habit that had become as natural as breathing. Thank you, God, for saving me from myself, for teaching me that real life is better than virtual life, that your presence is more satisfying than any entertainment, that I was made for more than consuming other people's stories. I was made to live my own. He pulled into the restaurant parking lot and saw his friends waiting outside. Real people, real relationships, real life. Trevor smiled. This was what he'd been missing. And it was better than any game, any show, any escape he'd ever found. Because this was real. And real was worth showing up for.